Video games. They're a $100 billion global industry, and many have grown to love them. Arcades played a big role in the factoring of making video games popular. So, from Galaga to Donkey Kong, I'll be your guide to the history of arcades. In 1885, the first arcades had no video games, yet something you'd see at the county fair. Shooting galleries and ball toss games were once the center of attention at your local arcade, not the video games we've grown to love today. Something you would also see there was machines that would tell your fortune or play mechanical music, which began the coin-operated trend that we use now. In the 1930s, something was made that we still use today, the pinball machine. This pinball machine looked different though. Instead of the usual metal frame and LEDs, this one was made out of wood. Alongside the appearance of the pinball machine, we also start to see skee-ball and baseball attractions and other tests of dexterity. And now, the amusement arcade was born. Everything that comes after the invention of the skee-ball machine and pinball machine is merely refinement. In the 1960s, companies such as Sega, Nintendo, and Taito began to produce electromechanical games for arcades, which would use electronic components like flippers, flashing lights, and moving parts to immerse the player in the game. Games such as Periscope, Grand Prix, and Duck Hunt had begun a trend that would lead into fully electronic, real arcade games. Around this time, the first real arcade machines were being developed. Some would argue Stanford University's Galaxy game was the first, and others would say Nolan Bushnell's Computer Space, the first commercially sold coin-operated arcade machine, should be called the first real arcade game. But the first one to really shake the market was Pong, created in 1972 by Atari. Pong hopefully doesn't need an explanation. Early machines of Pong were plagued with what bar owners thought were technical issues. It transpired that often the only problem was that the coin cell was overflowing due to the game's popularity. The 1970s saw a flurry of innovation that was entirely unknown territory, with manufacturers such as Atari, Taito, Midway, and Sega all making names for themselves. They were doing this by making joysticks, gun controllers, and steering wheels, and other new inventions without which the arcades would never have existed in the way they did were all invented in the 1970s. The end of the 1970s saw arcade video games grow from a small offshoot of consumer electronic entertainment into an industry of their own. First-person games such as Road Race and Night Driver continued to innovate, and arguably one of the most important games of this time was Atari's breakout. However, what nobody saw coming ahead, what is now known as the Golden Age of video games. Many debate the start of this golden age, but it's most commonly agreed on the release date of Space Invaders. Released in 1978, Space Invaders was the arcade industry's first blockbuster hit and drew inspiration from sci-fi media, such as The War of the Worlds and Star Wars. The next 3 years saw the releases of Asteroids, Galaxian, Pac-Man, Defender, Donkey Kong, and Frogger. And as far as this goes, this was the ideal arcade in the 1970s and 80s. Everything from until now, it has been going up and up and up. But what comes up must come down. And hence, the 2019 modern arcade. Some would argue that the modern arcade is fine in its state, but that's all it is. Fine. With home consoles becoming more and more popular by the day, it seems arcades have gotten lazy. And what I mean by this is, there's only been one real addition since the Golden Age, and that's basketball machines. There is another addition that wasn't so very welcome. And what I speak of is mobile games being ported to a bigger screen to enhance the experience. It's not exactly an enhanced experience. These would include things such as piano tiles and other lazy games that you just find on the App Store, such as Fruit Ninja. If you want to go out into public and play a decent game, you should just go ahead and go to GameStop and play the demos. It's much better than going to the arcade and paying for an awful experience. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. It took me quite a bit to make and quite a while to make, but yeah, I hope you guys really enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And yeah, see you around.